What we're doing out here tonight, we're fishing on the Tennessee River below Chickamauga Dam, or not Chickamauga Dam, Watts Bar Dam, on the tailwater of that downstream on a big giant current break. We've got quite a few large pieces of cut bait set up on a slight trough back behind the boat here and on a current seam. I only put out big baits because we're out here targeting big fish, and they've been pretty active the last few weeks. The fish have come off the spawn, and all the fish that are up here at the dam are here to feed normally. And lately, the feeding window, when they've got super active, has been right at dusk almost every day. It's been pretty consistent, so that's what we're set up out here doing. We're only targeting big fish, 30s, 40s, and above. So you can come out here and do this and get 4 or 5 of them or get no bites. So it's a risk you gotta take, and I think we'll get a big one. We're down here on Chickamauga Lake with the tailwater of Watts Bar Dam. This time of the year, catfish have come fully off of the spawn, and a lot of them will come upstream to spawn at these dams. So now they're off of it, and they're feeding super heavy. Catfish aren't super, the way they behave is not exactly like stripers where they'll be right in the boil of it most of the time. They like big current breaks next to the current itself. So we're gonna set up right on a seam where it's slack off to the left and then super heavy current off to the right. Another good thing about this spot as well, it's got a change in depth where it gets deeper. There's a break line that goes from 15 to 19 feet. So they'll sit inside of that as the current goes over the top of it, which is another current break, and it shoots bait to them. So we're gonna anchor up ahead of where we wanna cast, let out about 100 feet of anchor rope to keep us stable so we don't swing as much, and then cast down into the little trough on the current seam. And then I use a cinder block when I'm below the dam because you will lose tons of anchors down here or in super snaggy situations, and that's $1.50. Not 90 bucks. So that's the reason for that. I need to get out my phone and look at avionics. One second. Make sure I'm at the head of this hole.
How accurate is that relative to a
Pretty,
machine?
I mean, not exactly accurate, but it gives you a good idea where the break line's at. On the river sections, it's not as accurate as the lake because it goes up and down so much, but it gives you an idea of where the break line's at, which is what you need to be on. So, all right. So you got to come up ahead of where you're anchoring and then throw your anchor out because it's got to catch. And you could just drag it over the top of your spot, which you don't want to do. Take it and chuck it. The more anchor line you let out in general on an anchor, the more stable your anchor is. So I'm going to let out as much of this as I can to where I'm 20 to 30 yards in front of the spot, and then I'll cast down to it. And then once this is set, I drop a back anchor to keep us stuck on the back end so we're not dragging our baits across the bottom.
And you don't have any fear that if you hook up on something, it's going to get...
Oh, no, that does happen. It's just you catch more fish with it out there as opposed to not having it out there and, you know, your baits aren't in the right spot.
It's an acceptable risk.
Yes, it's a trade-off. The reason why it's deeper right here is because that's Watts Bar nuclear plant, and they brought in all the materials to build the plant through the waterway because they're such big stuff that go in nuclear reactors. And this is where they parked them to build the reactor. So they had to dig a little channel right there for those
barges.
Yeah, that word, to sit in. Which now makes a good spot for us to fish. All right, so it's on the bottom right there. You don't need to let out a bunch of line on the back anchor. It's just to keep us from swinging as much as we can. If we get a really big fish on in my little boat, we're gonna get pulled around anyways. It doesn't matter. This is just so we can present baits correctly. Big net that got broken the other day with the catfish. All right. So when you're catfishing, you've got to use different sizes of weights and different types of lead to sit correctly in current situations. This is a mostly rock bottom, so we need something flat that'll get hung on stuff and sit there. That ounce size of weight you use when you're doing this depends on how much current there is. There's a whole lot of current here, so I'm using 8 ounces of lead instead of 4. 4 would just get washed straight back behind the boat. We wouldn't have a big spread of baits. So by doing this, it optimizes the amount of area I have baits out in. So we'll get, I run 6 off the back and then 2 off the front. So we gotta get 8 out. All right. This is a sinker slide. It slides up and down the line, so when they eat it, they can pull line without this getting stuck. And then you can take your weights off easily and change them for what you need. Big double hook rig, we'll throw a whole skipjack out on that. You want to get your weights all clipped on before you start cutting skipjack up, because it's really hard to do anything after that because you're all nasty. Looking good out here today. Double rig on that one. This one will be a down rod. All right. We can just lay it up there. This rod has seen better days, but it's caught a lot of fish. That's a 100-pound leader line right there. Catfish have super bony, not bony mouths, like sandpaper type mouths. And if you do a straight braid leader to it or just a light mono, you'll get cut. They'll break you off, and then that's what we're using for bait. All right, so I'm about to get nasty.
So this is not frozen, or is it you freshly frozen?
It's fresh. I just put it straight on ice. I caught these last night, and they went immediately on ice. So that'll be one bait right there. And then you'll vary bait sizes on your other rods just to see what they want. And I don't ever use the tails unless I run out of bait. That'll be a bait. That'll be a bait. That'll be a bait.
What do you look for when you get this? I mean, when you're just catching them, but I mean, selective with what you keep?
The bigger ones. The bigger ones bleed a whole lot more, and they stay on the hook a whole lot better. The little ones get torn off.
Tougher?
Yeah, skin's tougher, and they have a bigger backbone for the hook to sit in, and they bleed more too. Like, yeah. All right, time to get nasty. Be using circle hooks so the fish will eat it and set the hook themselves. That's a 9/0 double action. It's actually a saltwater hook that Catfish company bought and rebranded.
Up through the...
Yeah, so there's the backbone right here. You want your hook to go through the backbone and out the top, and then no scales on the tip. If you have a scale on the tip of this hook, they'll bend it over and start pulling drag, and the hook will just pop, and then you'll reel it in. There'll be a scale. It won't go past it. Make sure your drag's good. And when you're casting these out, you want to try to fan them out so you've got the spread.
How much drag do you typically run on over here?
Like 15 pounds, 15 to 20. It depends on like the situation you're fishing. If you're fishing a big rock pile or a log jam, I crank it down because you got to get them out of it. It'll go straight in it and break you off. But here, there's not a whole lot to get snagged on except out there's a rock pile. So we'll see. So this is a big double hook bait. You want to make sure you got 2 hooks on this because they can come and bite the back end of it and not get the whole hook. So one goes through the nose, and then the other one goes through the top of the backbone like that, out the back. Push it down so it sits flush, no scales, like that. That's a big 50-pounder, 60-pounder chunk. Sometimes they'll eat a little bait, but a lot of times they'll eat one of these big giant ones.
And you're putting all these at the lip of the hole or at the inside?
It's sitting in the hole. Yep. The front rod right there, this is the hole starts right here. I'm gonna drop straight down underneath the boat and reel it up just off the bottom if there's one sitting under us. I always check and make sure my drag's good on these, because when a big catfish hits it, it's gonna start pulling, and you better have the drag situated correctly. It's gonna be a long bomb. All right, this one's going way out in the current. And then if it gets stuck out there, cool. I need a better chunk. I don't like those. That reel has seen better days. One of them was getting bumped. It's a little fish though. All right. On bottom.
Went straight down.
Yep. Then reel it, and now it's like a foot off the bottom. And you put it in the holder. That's it. One of the most important parts of catfishing or striper fishing is having fresh bait. Now, I prefer catching the bait the day of or the day before and immediately putting them on ice. To target the big fish, the bait has to be fresh. You don't want nasty, smelly, rotten bait like all the silly catfishing things say. That's the complete opposite of reality. The big trophy catfish want fresh bait. And my favorite bait to use is skipjack herring. It's a very large bait fish. You get multiple pieces out of it. It has a lot of caloric density for the type of fish it is. It's super oily and fatty, and they get a lot of energy from eating it because of that, so it makes it one of their favorite baits to eat. When you cut it up, it leaves a giant scent trail, and when you're catfishing, having a scent trail in current is how you draw the fish to you. Catfish can feed, they have a lateral line like other fish and can sense vibrations and eat live bait and stuff like that, but their whole body is a sensory organ. They can smell using their skin, and skipjack is the smelliest thing fish-wise. You don't want it unnatural though, that's not good. Like leaning out to rot or chicken breast, while they can work, is not something that you want to use to target big fish all the time. So when I come out catfishing, I like to get at least 5 to 10 of the bigger ones. If they're the smaller, here I can show you. I'll grab one out of here. This is a pretty decent sized skip, 18 inches or so, about 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. That's, if you're coming out to fish all day, you need probably 8 to 10 of those if you're using 6 rods or more. And I generally use bigger chunks on average because I want to catch larger fish. I will throw a smaller bait out because sometimes when they're inactive, they'll eat a smaller bait. But a lot of the times it'll be a big bait, and you've got to have enough bait to fish all day. So I try to catch at least 10 to 12. I've got about 30 in there because we're fishing a couple of days, and you know, you don't want to have to come in here and worry about catching bait if you can handle it. If you're going to freeze bait, the best way to do it is immediate on ice like I have it, and then when you get home, vacuum seal them immediately and then straight in the freezer. That preserves the freshness of them and drastically increases your chance of catching a big fish and a lot of fish on frozen bait. I've seen people wrap them in cellophane wrap and aluminum foil and stuff like that. While that works in a pinch, If you want to consistently go after the big fish, you have to put your time in on the bait. It's probably the second to third most important thing. You've of course got to be on the fish to catch them, but you got to have the good bait to get them to eat it too. So bait is crucial. A lot of people ask how long you leave a bait in the water, and that really depends on the time of year, what you're fishing, what you're targeting, and if the fish are active or not. So during the winter and months where fish can be a little bit more lethargic, you can sit on a spot for longer. When you're anchored, I at least give it 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, because if I'm going to fish a spot, I have a lot of confidence in it, and I want to know I've presented it to all the fish in the area. A lot of people fall into the trap of running around the lake thinking they're going to find active fish. If you're in one area of the lake and the weather's the same everywhere, unless there's some kind of weird environmental factor that stains the water or it's warmer or something like that where you're going, it's not going to make a big difference if you switch from one 50-foot break line to another if there are fish on that break line. You've just got to keep tweaking your bait sizes, the speed at which you present it, how long you sit on it, the depth that it's at, in a general area. I don't like running all over the place. I would rather pick apart one small little area where I know there are fish at. In the summer, I like to do a lot of drifting and dragging because there's not a lot of current, so it makes it hard to anchor. You can't really sit anywhere without the wind blowing you around, so you can use a remote controlled trolling motor to troll down the break lines. And a lot of the times the catfish in the summer will bite more actively, at least the smaller ones. You don't catch a lot of giant fish in the summer. It's hard because the catfish are on the spawn and coming off the spawn, so you've got to move your bait past as many fish as possible in that situation. Where we're at right now, the fish are actively feeding, so once they move into this area, this is really a transit area, we'll catch them. Different types of cut bait last longer in the water. The scent in them, skipjack, you can use for an hour or more and reel them up and there's still blood in it. A gizzard shad gets washed out, we call it, really quickly. So 30, 45 minutes, I want to change it out. Bluegill, I don't really ever use. If you've got to use it, probably the same rule of thumb as a gizzard shad, 30 to 45 minutes, and then reposition your bait and freshen it up. Skipjack lasts a long time though, because they've got so much blood and oil in them. There are tons of different catfish rods on the market. On average, what you want to get is a medium heavy, 7 foot, like 6 and above to like 8 is the perfect range. There are different sizes of the rods, of course, just like bass fishing for different sizes of bait, but medium heavy is on average what I use. I've got a couple of heavy action ones that I use to throw the bigger baits out because it lets me throw it without straining so hard. A lot of times the rods for catfish are designed for circle hooks because catfish hook themselves really easily and a circle hook will pull right in the corner of their mouth. And if you have a soft tip on the rod, like or on all of these, it allows that hook to roll and then set before ripping it out of its mouth. If you've got a super stiff rod, they'll slam it and it'll just pop straight out because it doesn't have time to roll. The bend in the rod gives it time to roll. And then after the taper on the bend, there's a lot of backbone because you've got to horse these fish up sometimes when they're super heavy structure and they're very strong. What I use personally are Warrior Cat rods. I've used pretty much all of them that are on the market for catfish rods. I just like these because they're super high visibility. I'm really rough on stuff and they last forever. I've beat the crap out of them and I've only broken 1 or 2 and that's because I dropped a 50-pound anchor on it. So, you know, not a normal occurrence. Reel wise, you want to use a larger conventional reel. Spinning reels are hard to use for catfish because you've got to use heavy lead and heavy baits, and casting that with a spinning rod is pretty hard to do. It'll mess your finger up. The bigger bait casters are designed to do that because you can put braking on them or tension as you reel as you're throwing and control where they go. And it's also easier to fight fish on the big bait casters, I feel like. They also have really good clickers on them, so if you're running a clicker instead of the rod engaged, all the big bait casters have those on there, and they're generally pretty robust. Catfish will break stuff pretty easily once you get them in the boat. Current for fishing in general, especially on the Tennessee River system, whether that's for muskie, striper, bass, or whatever, is supremely important. A lot of the times, that one's getting hit right there. I think it was a small fish, it just shook. Yeah, see that? Okay. Back to what we were talking about. Current in general is good. To look to see how much current you've got in your lake, you want to look at the generation schedule on the dams above the lake you're on and below, because when they're pumping from below, it's pulling current through the dam, and when they're through the lake, and then when they're pushing current above from one of the dams that feed the lake itself or the river, it's pushing current in. So when there's both going, you've got good flow, and good flow in general makes fish have to feed because they're expending caloric energy in the current. So they got to eat at some point, and it also isolates them. So when there's not current, fish can kind of roam and suspend and do whatever. When there's a lot of current, fish will go in predictable areas to get out of it and be near something they can feed in. So I always like going when there's a lot of flow. Type of flow depends on the lake or river you're fishing. Around here, the Tennessee Valley Authority measures current by cubic feet per second that pushes out of the dams, which affects the main lake too. I know we're talking about the dam, but it's the same, holds true on the main lake. So you want to look at the cubic feet per second, the max output at the dam. That's getting hit again. It's small fish though. The max output for the dam, and then the lower output. And if you can choose when you want to go and fish, go when there's current, because it's always better. And catfishing's really good in the winter because there's a lot of current normally, because the dams run on either power demand from people's homes and businesses, which is a lot in the winter because of the heating and stuff like that, or because of rainfall, and they have to adjust the levels of the lakes, which becomes difficult in the summer or the winter because everything's super dry and it just rushes straight into the lakes and makes it rise really quickly. So they've got to pump it to the Mississippi. So winter's always the best for catfishing in general. It's my favorite time to fish. There's less people out here. There's always more current, and the fish are usually deep in very defined locations. So that's my favorite time to fish. Go when there's current. The Tennessee River system in general is great for catfish because catfish like warm water, and the Tennessee River is in the south. So generally it's way warmer than other rivers in overall. So like channel catfish and flathead catfish can tolerate cooler waters. They perform better. But the big blue cats, which is what we're targeting today, do better in general warmer water scenarios throughout the year. And the Tennessee River system isn't an area that is conducive for that. And the Tennessee River system itself has a whole lot of bait too. So they have food to eat all the time to grow big. Tennessee has had some, that's getting hit right now, has had pretty favorable laws towards catfishing. So there's not a whole lot of overharvest. And in general, the catfish community here is very protective of the reef source. So there's not a whole lot of killing of trophy fish, which we don't like. It's fine to eat 10, 12 pounders. Those are great. But when you get the really big fish, just like a muskie or a striper or something like that, you want to release it so that the genes stay within the population of fish. The Tennessee River also has a lot of depth to it. So big fish in general like deeper water because it's more stable and they can grow through longer periods of time. And there's a lot of that on the Tennessee River chain. When you're catfishing, you need good, stable rod holders in the boat that are not going to get ripped out or broken, because the rods are locked down for circle hooks. So when the fish bends it over, especially a large one, it's going to apply a ton of force to that. The ideal thing is they hit it so hard it's just peeling line in the holder and you can't get it out of it. But when they don't, and you need to reel down on them, is what we call it, to set the hook, don't pick it up to do that, because that changes the amount of tension on the rod. Catfish don't care that there is tension, but when it goes from a lot of tension to slack to more tension or something like that, they drop it. And I've learned that the hard way, fishing from the bank and from the boat. So if you've got one that's just slowly bending the rod down, it's not doing anything, you let it do it for a little while. You want to come up to the rod, grab the reel or somewhere at the top portion of the rod, and take the handle and crank down pretty quickly until the rod bends all the way down and stays down. Once there's steady tension, pull it up out of it and make sure the hook's set, and then keep it bent the whole time. You don't want to let the bend come out of the rod, because Sometimes when you have to do the reel down technique, the hook doesn't get set super well. A lot of times it can, but when it doesn't, you have to keep tension on it or the hook will pull. And they'll do really big head shakes, so you just got to keep the rod bent. And don't horse them. You just want to ease them in. If they want to take line, let them take line. I've had really large fish that I've put too much heat on and thrown the spool, and it rips the hook out of the side of their face because they've got, you can hook them in the tooth pad on the top or bottom of their jaw, but 99% of the times it hooks them in the side of the mouth, and if you get it way out to the front towards the whisker, it can rip out of their mouth. And you'll fight them for 5-10 minutes, and then they'll do one big run. Someone get hit? What?
It was bouncing up and down. The one on the left and the one on the right.
Really? They'll do one big run and pull the hook. So don't pick it up out of the rod holder, reel down on it, reel down on it in the holder. All right, so one thing I want to cover as well is that if you're targeting trophy class catfish, you really need to have some patience. It's not like the small 10, 15, 20 pounders where they'll bite instantly when you're on them. A big mistake people can make is be in an awesome area for fish or big fish with all the right things going and just not give it enough time. I think that boils down to focusing on the result instead of focusing on craft of what you're doing, the process. When you focus on the process and doing everything right, the fish will come. You just don't even need to worry about catching the fish, more as doing the things right to catch the fish. And then the fish are just a natural cause of doing everything right. I read a book about a competitive shooter. He's a coach for shooting, Olympic gold medalist, and he interviewed hundreds of Olympic medalists and gold medalists, and that was the biggest thing that they said gave them an edge over their competition, or why they won so much, is that they put in the work beforehand to get prepared and focus the things to win. And when they were doing it or doing the process, they were just focusing on doing whatever they could do the best, and then they won. Same thing holds true with fishing. If you know you're doing everything right, you're in the right place, you're at the right time for when you're usually catching fish, you've got the right bait, everything's set out correctly, have some confidence in it and give it time. I'll sit on a spot for 2 hours sometimes with nothing, and then for 30 or 45 minutes you can't keep rods in the water, and that just made the whole trip worth it. I could have been running around the whole lake when that activity period happened and not even had baits in the water, which I have done a lot of and had to learn the hard way. So what I do now is if I'm on an area where I know there are fish at, I've been catching fish, or they should be at because of the time of the year, and I'm doing all the other things correctly, I'll sit on it for a while and just have confidence that it'll happen. All right, guys, so just in full disclosure, it's dark. We're about to lose the light. It's going to be really hard to film. Once we hook up with the fish, we'll get the camera going and get lights on it. We'll try to get the fight, the battle, take down on a rod holder if we can, and us landing the fish in pictures, of course. But it could be hard to see, so just bear with us. Got him. Oh, coming at me, he's fighting real weird. I think this fish is swimming at me. Yep, he's swimming at me.
That's a risky gambit right there, huh?
Yep. If you can get that one rod up, I just need to go under it. All right, you put it back in the holder now.
Sorry, people.
That was a weird bite. Now we're straight up and down on them. So we should figure out what kind of fish it is. This is a catfish for sure. Whoa. He is pulling line upstream.
take the net out?
Yeah. It's right over the motor cowling.
Bear with me, people.
I would be not surprised if this is a big flathead the way it ate. Whoa. Whoa. This drag's locked down too. Whoa. The whole boat's getting pulled around. You just want to keep that rod bent, and when they take line, let them take it. Big old flathead. Knew it. Whoa, buddy. Get that head first up in there. Oh, yes. Heck yeah. Cameraman got the... Oh. Toad. That's awesome. Woo!
That is a good one, huh?
That's a big one, boy. I knew that was a flathead bite the way he was eating it. Look at that. Super soft bite. Just barely ticking at it. Heck yeah. This is a tub. Flathead. Look at that hook set. Right in the tooth pad. Oh.
What you thinking?
That's a good one. He's probably close to 40. Big fish, lots of girth on him. All right, got this big old Tennessee flathead. We go put him back. Oh, that's a heavy fish. That's always a good photo right there. Look at all the minnows coming up to the light. That's a bruiser. Look at that. Gone. And hopefully we get about a 70-pound blue cat now. That would just cap the night off. So. Fuck. Dude!
Got another pig on.
Another one! We released that other one and this one's on now. Coming at me. Yeah. Left rod. Left for this one. All right, we're good. Cool. This is gonna be a blue cat. The way it hit it, just obliterated it. This fish is coming upstream. Uh-oh. Oh, shit. Dude, this thing's pulling. I can't even reel. This is a tub.
Your drag is maxed all the way out.
Yep.
You can't even fucking get it cranked.
Nope. Oh my God. Quit it. Give it a little more juice. I don't like it when they run like that. It's when they pull the hook. When they do those big giant head shakes. Bro, this is a submarine catfish. Holy. Big blue. Big blue. Whoa! There's about a 90-pound double. What's up? I'm tired. That was a big old fish. This is probably gonna be one of the ones where I can't lift it with one arm. I gotta do both. Yep. Oh. There's a 50 plus. What's up? Look at the head on that thing. Oh, he's just gonna take a duke all over my boat. Great. Dude, that's a sub. Holy crap. Dude, chill. This thing's gonna hurt. Jesus. Can't use any of them bass pliers for this. Corner of the mouth. That one I threw back further than all the other ones twice on that rod. So I'm probably gonna reposition baits back further. I'm gonna throw them out farther because that's the second one. And that was almost immediate. Gonna release this monster. Look at the head on it. All right. Ouch. Yeah, he's gone. Oh, he crunched my hand.